Hello and welcome to the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation CISM Live series, where we connect with critical incident stress subject matter experts live on YouTube. My name is Kelly and I'm the host of the CISM Live series. Before we get into today's discussion, I'd like to personally say thank you to the over 500 subscribers to the ICISF YouTube channel. We want to provide more content like our CISM Live series, but this is where we need your help. We're looking to get to 1,000 subscribers to our YouTube channel, and we're over halfway there. Make sure to share our channel or any of our videos with your friends, coworkers, peers, and others that you think might benefit from our CISM knowledge and tips from subject matter experts. Today, we're joined by guest speaker, Barb Ertl, who is a retired school social worker with over 31 years of service. Barb is a certified trauma treatment specialist, a fellow of the American Academy of Experts in Traumatic Stress, and maintains a small counseling practice. Additionally, Barb has been an International Critical Incident Stress Foundation instructor since 1994. She has taught extensively throughout the United States and 5 other countries. Barb currently teaches several ICISF courses. She has 24 years of public safety experience encompassing fire, EMS, and law enforcement, and is a very proud Marine Corps veteran. Welcome, Barb.
Good morning, Kelly.
So today we're going to be discussing the pandemic crises and the effects on schools. So Barb, how has the pandemic changed and how we provide education to students in kindergarten through 12th grade, and what were or are the major obstacles?
Well, this past year has been, past year and a half actually, has been a tremendously challenging year for educators. First, we were given very difficult messages about, should we be masking, should we be in school, what have you. And so the communication as to what the pandemic was and how it was unfolding and how it was going to impact us, because there were conflicting messages, we responded in different ways. And so there was a lot of conflict and a lot of change involved in this past year. Obviously, we went the route eventually to masking and distancing, and then we went virtual. And virtual was not an easy transition for most people, not only in terms of access, actually having the hardware, the software, and the internet access to do it, but also we lost a lot of the hands-on that educators provide to students, whether it be keeping them engaged in curriculum or just focused on new material, introducing new material. Especially difficult for the younger students. How do you go virtual with kids that don't read and can't use a keyboard? I mean, very basic skills. And that is if we have parents or adults that are there to help them. So we shifted from, a teacher, maybe a teacher and a paraprofessional leading a classroom to a worldwide stage almost, because who was on the other end of the camera in virtual classrooms was anybody's guess, and who was doing the work was anybody's guess. So those are the major things that shifted, and they will continue to evolve. I mean, I met with a group of administrators this morning, and one of the things that they were talking about is the difficulty in finding staff. We were approaching a teacher shortage before the pandemic came, at least regionally, with difficulty finding even substitute teachers. And now we have, in many regions, we have teachers that are being forced to choose between staying home with their own kids maybe, or making other family choices, or just leaving the field altogether. And so who is actually going to be standing in front of classes when students go back to school is going to be a challenge in many ways.
Yeah, that's definitely, there are many challenges with that.
Mm-hmm. In our region, at one point last spring, I heard that 40% of students in one of our urban districts had not signed on to their virtual classes at all. 40%. I mean, how do you make up for months and months of education? How do you do that?
Well, that leads into my next question. How is the pandemic likely to impact the coming school year? Whether
Well,
it's going on right now or
Right.
getting ready to start.
Sure. I think there is a lot of apprehension and fear going into the current school year now. I know in some parts of our country, kids are already back in school, but in my area here in Pennsylvania, we're about 2 weeks away. So, you know, different schools are going to be in different places, but, you know, the news about the pandemic is evolving. Okay, the science is changing. I mean, we're learning more and more, but we're also dealing with children when we talk about schools. And in any profession, whether it's medicine or education or whatever, there is an extra level of protectiveness that we have when it comes to kids. Well, here we have a pandemic that's surging again. And the only ones not eligible for a vaccine are the children. And so, you know, here we have, okay, we have an idea that the vaccine protects the adults, but we're leaving our very vulnerable, our most vulnerable, unprotected at this point. And so how do you make that decision as a parent to send your child to school or to remain in a virtual setting that everyone knows is not optimal? So that's one of the major things that's happening right now. Again, the idea of teachers in front of classrooms, do we have enough? And if not, how do we make it work? Probably a third thing, and maybe an even more difficult thing to deal with this school year, is the differences in terms of kids in the same class, their skill level. You know, and when you're working in the virtual world, as I said, we really don't have an idea of who's doing the work. You know, are the students themselves doing the work, or is it a parent doing the work and submitting it so that their grades remain high? And we know that's going on. But when you come back to a classroom and have to actually perform, you may see some students that are really, you know, essentially a year behind, and others that appear to be on track. Well, how does a teacher accommodate such a wide span within a single classroom? What does standardized testing look like under these conditions? I mean, in some ways, we're almost going to need to be doing individual education to bring kids along, starting out where they are, as opposed to where we think a fourth grader should be at the beginning of the year, or an eighth grader at the beginning of the year. We can't make those assumptions anymore.
What issues do you think will need to be addressed if the students return to in-person learning this year?
Well, I think that, you know, and I support in-person learning because I think that is how children benefit the most. But I think we're going to do a balancing act between how to meet their social emotional needs. In other words, their need to feel safe in those kinds of environments with the academic challenges. I think that's going to be one of our major struggles, is how do we do that?
So then you had talked about educators kind of balancing the academic needs. How do educators balance the needs of the students with their social emotional needs?
Okay. Well, one of the things that I think the educators need to do is, instead of jumping right into the academics at the beginning of the year, they need to spend time, and this is true every year, but this is especially true this year, but they need to spend time building relationships with the students and giving voice to the students' concerns. Kids need to be heard in terms of what do they need to feel safe. If you remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And this is where it goes back to, we're at a very primitive level when it comes to the pandemic. First we need to be, have our physical needs met, food, water, shelter, those kinds of things. But the second most basic need is to feel safe. And how do you instill in kids and educators right now that they're safe in an environment where the pandemic is swirling around? I mean, it's in all of our communities. So how can we help them to feel safe? Well, we need to listen. Okay, we need to listen. As educators, we need to allow them to voice that. And we need to assure them, especially our young kids, that everything that can be done is being done. Now, where the struggle comes in, though, is unfortunately not all adults agree on what should be done, right? I was just reading this morning about a school board meeting that erupted where various people, parents, were fighting about mask or no mask. And I understand rights, we have a right to make decisions for our kids, but we're also in a pandemic. And so when does the rights of the many take precedence over the rights of the few? Those are things that we're going to struggle with all year long, because people have very strong opinions.
That's very true. So what impact have you seen that the pandemic has had on educators?
On educators?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do have a small mental health practice, a small counseling practice, and I've seen many teachers come through my doors that, at least in numbers that I haven't seen before, that they're struggling. They're very much struggling. They want to give the best for their students, but there's a hesitancy in terms of, their own safety. And so that is one thing that I see happening for them. They need to feel safe as well. Another is not being sure on, again, academics versus social emotional learning. Some of them feel very well equipped to deal with the academics, but not so well equipped to deal with the social emotional learnings of kids. And so, we're seeing so many things pulling on already fatigued teachers. Teachers for so many years assumed multiple roles for students, right? We provide meals in schools now for kids that are food insufficient. We, in some ways, the teachers are the confidant, they're the coaches, they're the mentors, the term in loco parentis, when parents aren't there, the teachers are in fact working in their stead. And so they're being pulled in many, many directions. And now those are being extended even more.
Well, and I'm also personally seeing from a lot of teachers that I know that access to teachers has become more of a 24/7 type of deal, whereas, prior to the pandemic, that really wasn't the case.
Right.
So with the remote and hybrid learning, that's becoming more and more of a thing. So they're having trouble distinguishing between that personal time and helping our
Exactly.
students.
Yeah, it's funny because, teachers always worked, 7:30 to 3:30 or what have you, but then there was the job at home, right? That's when you prepared your lesson plans. That's when you did your grading. And so there was a whole nother component that was just done outside of the school building.
Mhm.
Well, now, as you said, there is so much blending of the school day and the home day that it's hard to distinguish. And
Mhm.
that's one thing that that I'm concerned about in our teachers that are already stressed and overwhelmed, is you add on another layer, and how are they going to deal with that?
Mm. So what do you think will be the long-term impact of the pandemic on schools or education as we move forward?
Well, I think that one is that we've been forced into the technology age in a way we hadn't anticipated as quick as maybe we thought. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. Okay, I think that that for some students, being able to do classes remotely, being able to do more independent study kinds of things is going to be an asset to a certain subset of our students. For other students, it's going to be very problematic, especially for like special needs students. Students that need additional support, even when we're doing in-person education, aren't going to get that at home, right? They're not going to get the things like OT and PT and speech services, at least in the way that they got them before. I know many of the school districts around my home here in Pennsylvania. They've had the OTs, PTs, and speech folks on with parents, coaching parents on how to do things, but it's not quite the same as in person. And I've heard many parents of special needs kids express resentment that, hey, I'm not the specialist, you are, and you need to be doing this, not me. So I think that if we go back to remote learning, if we go back to virtual classrooms anytime soon, we're going to see that growing animosity, that growing dissatisfaction with another system. And it is another system because you can see people being frustrated around, lots of systems in our country. We're not happy with what the state of our healthcare system right now. We're not happy with the state of law enforcement. We're not happy with the state of our government in general. There's just a growing dissatisfaction with so many things. And I think it grows out of our frustration and our sense of helplessness right now. And I think that we'll see that with faculty members as well, and parents.
So then what tips do you have for educators as schools start to open or start the school year?
Well, I've been trying to imagine walking into a class that first day, and what would I need? What would I need? One of the things that I can say is this: when I deal with crises in the school, and I did that for a good long time and continue to do this, one of the things that I advocate is when people are under stress, you need to attend to self-care. And so one thing that I'm going to suggest to all educators is take care of yourself before you try and take care of kids. It's kind of that oxygen mask, in the airplane, the adult put your mask on first and then render help. Same kind of thing here. And so one of the tips that I have is find, either before school or after school, 15 minutes minimum If you can afford more, great, but 15 minutes minimum that is just for you. Not dealing with your kids, not dealing with the bills, not dealing with anything else, just for you to find something that you enjoy. Okay, whether that's going and getting a cup of ice cream, or it's listening to your favorite song, or, it's just putting your feet up. Treat yourself to 15 minutes. That's just you time, wherever that is. Okay. And being in your car doesn't count unless the car is in park and you're listening to good music. It doesn't count. Okay. So somewhere, either, before school or after school, take care of yourself, because you need to recharge your battery. And you need to appreciate that, you have an awesome responsibility. You chose that profession. It's an honorable, it's a great profession. You have the ability to influence people's lives forever. But to do it well, you need to be kind of in a place where your head is with them. Your heart, we know your heart is with them, but can you recharge your battery so that you can truly attend to them? So that is my first thought in terms of what can I recommend to you? Take care of yourself. Give yourself permission, okay, to be good to yourself.
That's definitely a great tip for any and all educators. From the ICISF family, we just want to thank each and every educator, school administrator, or anyone that is within the school system, actually helping to make a difference in the lives of all of the children out there throughout the school. And we just say thank you, because you guys really are making a difference and continue to make a difference as the school year goes on. So thank you from all of us.
And I'd like to just say one other thing. To all of you educators, administrators, support staff, cafeteria folks, bus drivers, all of you, remember this, that the pandemic will end. Someday it will end. It may not be next week, but it will end. And what brought you into your current jobs, into the profession of education, will in fact come back and say, this is why I did it. Okay, so remember that, know it's coming, and anticipate it.
Thank you, Barb. Those are really wise words. If you've enjoyed our discussion today and would like to learn more about managing school crises, you can actually join Barb for her upcoming online course, Managing School Crises from Theory to Application, from October 4th through the 17th of 2021. This online course is designed to prepare school administrators and all educators for the inevitable crises that occur within schools and or that affect those in schools. This training reflects the three most common phases of a crisis: pre-crisis planning, acute crisis response, and post-crisis activities. She also offers this course as a live training. The links to register and learn more about these courses are in the description below. If you're interested, you can also request this course as a speakers bureau for a group of individuals within your organization or school. I'd like to thank Barb for joining us today to learn more about the pandemic crises as it affects schools. If you've enjoyed today's interview, make sure to give this video a thumbs up or leave a comment down below. Make sure to invite your friends, coworkers, and peers to subscribe to the ICISF YouTube channel to get notified for the next CISM Live series. Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you for the next one.
Okay.